The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. It was short, simple, and came from a dying world called Earth. Commander Thexara stood in the communications center of the Galactic Council headquarters, her 4 arms crossed as she watched the holographic display. The blue light from the projection made her silver skin look almost ghostly. Around her, dozens of alien species worked at their stations, but everyone had stopped to listen to humanity's final words. "This is Earth Control to the Galactic Council," the human voice said. It was calm, too calm for a species facing extinction. "We tried to warn you, we tried to make you listen. You chose not to hear us. Now it's too late for all of us. You have doomed yourselves." The transmission ended. The display went dark. Thexara waited for more, but nothing came. After 100 years of constant human chatter across the galaxy, the silence felt strange. She tapped her communication device with one of her lower arms. "Status report on all human colonies," she ordered. The reply came quickly from her aide, a nervous Carathian with blue scales. "All human settlements have gone dark, Commander. No response from any of their worlds. No signals from their ships. It's like they just vanished." Thexara smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Finally, the problem has solved itself." She walked through the corridors of the council building, her heavy boots clicking on the metal floor. Other species moved, aside as she passed. Most respected her, some feared her, but all knew better than to get in her way. The main council chamber was already full when she arrived. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in a giant circle, their voices mixing together, in a dozen different languages. The translation devices worked overtime to make sense of it all. At the center of the room, High Chancellor Vexmore called for order. The ancient Zephyrian looked tired, his gray skin wrinkled from centuries of leading the council. His large eyes scanned the room as the noise slowly died down. "Fellow council members," he began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. "I'm sure you've all heard about the human situation. After 100 years of trying to integrate them into our galactic community, they have finally fallen silent." A murmur ran through the crowd. Thexara heard relief in most voices, but some sounded worried. "Good riddance," called out Ambassador Trill from the Sistine Empire. Her insect-like body clicked as she spoke. "They were nothing but trouble from the start. Too violent, too aggressive, too willing to fight. They refused every treaty," added Representative Cole of the Velnari. "They wouldn't follow galactic law. They kept expanding into space that didn't belong to them." Thexara stood up, her impressive height making her tower over most others in the room. "The humans were a danger to galactic peace," she said. "Their technology advanced too quickly. They learned too fast. In just a few centuries, they went from using primitive rockets to building ships that could match our own. And their weapons," said another voice from the crowd. "They created things we'd never seen before. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets." High Chancellor Vexmore nodded slowly. "The humans were unique among the species we've encountered. Most civilizations take thousands of years to develop space travel. Humans did it in less than a century after they discovered electricity. They were unnatural," Thexara continued. "No species advances that quickly without cutting corners, without making dangerous choices. They probably destroyed themselves, with their own technology." The chamber filled with agreement. It was easy to believe. Humans had a reputation for taking risks, for pushing boundaries that other species respected. They built bigger ships, stronger weapons, and faster computers than anyone else. They also had more accidents, more failures, and more disasters. "Their final message mentioned warnings," said Dr. Kelnos from her seat near the back. The small, scholarly alien looked uncomfortable as dozens of eyes turned toward her. "What warnings were they talking about?" Thexara waved dismissively. "They were always talking about some threat or another. They claimed to have found dangerous signals from deep space. They said something was coming that would destroy us all. Typical human fear-mongering. They wanted us to build bigger armies," added Ambassador Trill. "They wanted us to create new weapons to prepare for some imaginary war. We were right to ignore them. Dr. Kelnos looked like she wanted to say more, but she stayed quiet. Around her, other council members nodded in agreement. The humans had been difficult neighbors for a century. They asked too many questions, demanded too much attention, and refused to stay in their assigned space. The galaxy is safer without them, High Chancellor Vexmore announced. Their silence proves they were not ready to join civilized society. Perhaps in a few thousand years, if they survive their current crisis, they will have learned wisdom. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the human question was considered closed. Trade agreements were updated to remove human colonies from shipping routes. Defense plans were changed to ignore human space. Diplomatic protocols were simplified now that there was one fewer species to deal with. As the council members left, the chamber most felt relieved. The human problem had been bothering the galaxy for a century. Their constant warnings about unknown dangers, their refusal to follow established laws, their rapid military buildup. It had all made other species. Nervous, Commander Thexara walked back to her office feeling satisfied. As head of the Hegemony Defense Fleet, she had been dealing with human expansion for decades. They had been claiming territory, building bases, and creating weapons at an alarming rate. More than once, she had recommended military action to contain them. Now containment was no longer necessary. The humans had contained themselves permanently. She sat at her desk and began updating her files. All references to human military strength could be deleted. All warnings about human expansion could be removed. All protocols for dealing with human ships could be archived. Her aide entered the office quietly. "Commander, we're still not detecting any signals from human space. Not even basic navigation beacons or emergency broadcasts. It's complete silence." "As expected," Thexara replied without looking up from her work. "They probably poisoned their atmosphere or triggered a nuclear war. Humans were never good at controlling their violent impulses. Should we send a scout ship to investigate?" Thexara finally looked up, her expression showing mild annoyance. "Why would we waste resources on a dead civilization? Let their empty world serve as a reminder to other species about the dangers of unchecked aggression." The aide nodded and left. Thexara returned to her paperwork, making notes about how to redistribute the defense resources that had been watching human space. Those ships and personnel could be used elsewhere now. Outside her window, the lights of the galactic capital city sparkled like stars. Millions of beings from dozens of species lived and worked together in harmony. It was proof that different civilizations could coexist peacefully when they followed the rules. The humans had never learned to follow rules. Now they were gone, and the galaxy could continue its peaceful development without their disruptive influence. As night fell over the capital, Thexara finished her work and prepared to go home. Tomorrow would be the start of a new era, an era without human problems, human warnings, or human interference. The galaxy was finally at peace. 6 months had passed since Earth went silent. Commander Thexara was enjoying breakfast in her quarters when the emergency alarm began screaming through the walls. Red lights flashed in the corridors as she ran toward the command center. Other officers rushed alongside her, their faces showing the same confusion she felt. The Galactic Council hadn't faced a real emergency in over 200 years. "Report!" she shouted as she burst through the doors of the communication center. Her aide, the blue-scaled Carathian named Feltar, looked up from his station with wide, frightened eyes. "Commander, we've lost contact with the Carathian outer colonies. 3 entire star systems have gone dark." Thexara felt her blood turn cold. Define gone dark. No communications, no navigation signals, no life signs. Nothing. Our long-range scanners show the planets are still there, but Feltar's voice trailed off. "But what?" "They're empty, Commander, completely empty." Within an hour, the main council chamber was packed with panicked representatives. High Chancellor Vexmore looked older than usual as he called for order. His usually calm voice shook slightly as he spoke. "Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented situation. 3 Carathian colony worlds have been evacuated. We don't know how, when, or by whom. Ambassador Krell of the Carathian Empire stood up, his scales pale with worry. It's not just evacuation, Chancellor. Our investigation teams found something impossible. The colonies weren't just abandoned. They were stripped clean. Explain, demanded Thexara. Every piece of technology is gone. Every computer, every vehicle, every power generator, every communication device. But the buildings are untouched. The furniture is still there. Even the food in the kitchens was left behind. Only the people and the technology disappeared. Heavy silence fell over the chamber. Dr. Kelnos raised one of her small hands. How many people are we talking about? 17 billion beings across 3 worlds. Ambassador Krell replied, his voice barely a whisper. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 17 billion people didn't just disappear. Even with the most advanced transportation technology in the galaxy, moving that many beings would take months and hundreds of ships. Could they have evacuated themselves? Asked someone from the back. Impossible. Krell shook his head. We monitor all ship traffic in Carathian space. Nothing left those systems. Nothing entered them either, except our investigation teams. Then, where are they? Thexara demanded. Before anyone could answer, another alarm began blaring. This time it came from the Velnari section of the galaxy. Then the Sistine Empire reported the same thing. More colonies, more missing billions, more impossible disappearances. In each case, the pattern was identical. Entire populations vanished, without a trace. All technology was gone, but everything else remained untouched. No signs of struggle, no evidence of ships, no explanation. By the end of the day, 9 colony worlds were empty. 28 billion beings had vanished like smoke. Dr. Kelnos worked through the night in her research lab, trying to find some explanation. She was the galaxy's expert on ancient history and lost civilizations. If anyone could understand what was happening, it would be her. Her assistant, a young hegemony student named Zixara, brought her another cup of stimulant tea. Doctor, I've been analyzing the energy readings from the empty colonies. There's something strange. Everything about this is strange, Kelnos muttered, not looking up from her data screens. No, I mean really strange. Look at this. Zixara activated a holographic display showing energy patterns from one of the missing colonies. These readings were taken just before the disappearance. Do you see that signature? Kelnos looked up, then froze. The energy pattern was familiar, but impossible. That's crystalline resonance technology. Right, but no known species uses crystalline tech. It was abandoned thousands of years ago because it was too unstable. Dr. Kelnos stood up slowly, her mind racing. Crystalline technology was ancient, dangerous, and supposedly extinct. It could manipulate matter at the molecular level, but it required an understanding of physics that few species had ever achieved. Zixara, pull up the historical files on crystalline technology. I want to know every species that ever experimented with it. As her assistant worked, Kelnos thought about the disappearances. The precision required to remove only people and technology while leaving everything else untouched would need incredibly advanced knowledge, the kind of knowledge that crystalline technology could provide. Doctor, Zixara called out, I found something. Look at this. The holographic display showed a new image. Ancient ruins on a dead world at the edge of known space. The ruins were covered in crystalline structures, their surfaces still glowing faintly after thousands of years. This is the Zerathi homeworld, Zixara explained. They were the masters of crystalline technology before they disappeared. When did they disappear? According to the records, about 3,000 years ago. One day they were there, the next day they were gone. Just like our missing colonies. Kelnos felt a chill run through her body. What happened to them? The records aren't clear. There are mentions of warnings of some great danger they tried to prepare for, but the other species at the time didn't take them seriously. What kind of warnings? Zixara scrolled through the ancient files. They claimed something was coming from the void between galaxies. something that consumed entire civilizations by turning their own technology against them. The other species thought the Zirathi were trying to create panic to gain political power. Dr. Kelno sat down heavily in her chair. The pattern was becoming clear, and she didn't like what she was seeing. Zixara, I want you to search for any recent mentions of similar warnings. Any species that claim to have detected threats from deep space. Her assistant worked quickly, her fingers flying over the control panels. After a few minutes, she looked up with a pale face. Doctor? There's only one species in recent history that made such claims. Who? The humans. For the past century, they kept sending reports about dangerous signals from outside the galaxy. They said something was coming that would destroy all advanced civilizations. The laboratory fell silent except for the humming of machines. Dr. Kelnos stared at the data, her mind putting together pieces of a puzzle she wished didn't exist. The humans tried to warn us, she whispered. But they're gone too, Zixara pointed out. Their worlds went dark 6 months ago. Did they? Or did they go into hiding because they knew what was coming? Before Zixara could reply, another alarm began screaming through the building. More colonies were disappearing. The pattern was spreading, growing stronger, becoming more frequent. Dr. Kelnos grabbed her research materials and ran toward the door. We need to get this information to the council immediately. As they rushed through the corridors, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. Whatever was happening had been planned for a long time. The disappearances were too precise, too systematic to be random attacks. Someone, or something, was hunting the galaxy's civilizations with perfect knowledge of their locations, their defenses, and their technology. And somehow it was connected to warnings that everyone had ignored. The humans had tried to tell them. The Zirathi had tried to warn their contemporaries 3,000 years ago. Both civilizations had been dismissed as fearmongers. Both civilizations had then disappeared. Now the same thing was happening to everyone else, and Dr. Kelnos feared they had no idea how to stop it. The attacks came like clockwork. Every 2 weeks, another group of colonies would vanish overnight. The pattern never changed. Perfect precision, complete removal of all people and technology. Everything else left untouched. Commander Thexera stood in the war room, staring at a galaxy map covered in red dots. Each dot represented a missing colony. There were now 47 red dots scattered across known space. Over 200 billion beings, she said quietly to her staff. Gone without a trace. Her aide Feltar looked exhausted. He hadn't slept properly in weeks. None of them had. Commander, our defense fleets are spread too thin. We can't protect every colony world. It wouldn't matter if we could, Thexera replied bitterly. Whatever is doing this can remove entire populations without our sensors detecting anything. Our ships might as well be made of paper. The truth was painful but clear. The Galactic Council's military forces were useless against this threat. They had tried everything: increased patrols, early warning systems, evacuation protocols. Nothing worked. The disappearances continued on schedule, as predictable as sunrise. Dr. Kelnos entered the war room carrying a stack of data tablets and looking more worried than ever. Her research into the crisis had consumed her completely. She barely ate, rarely slept, and spent all her time searching for answers. Commander, I need to show you something, she said, activating a holographic display in the center of the room. The display showed a timeline of the disappearances, with each incident marked in red. Lines connected the missing colonies, showing the pattern of attacks spreading slowly across the galaxy. Look at this carefully, Dr. Kelnos said. The attacks aren't random. They're following the major trade routes and communication networks. Whatever is doing this has perfect knowledge of our infrastructure. Thexara studied the display. You're right. They're targeting our supply chains. Exactly. And look at what they're not attacking. The display changed to show the major home, worlds of each species marked in blue. No attacks on capital worlds or major population centers, only colonies and industrial worlds. They're weakening us slowly, Feltar realized. Cutting off our resources without triggering a full military response. But why? Thexara asked. If they can make entire populations disappear, why not just attack the homeworlds directly? Dr. Kelnos looked uncomfortable. I think I know, but you're not going to like the answer. She activated another display, this one showing energy readings from the attack sites. We found these devices at every location. The hologram showed a small, crystalline object that seemed to glow with its own light. What are they? Communication devices. Each one broadcasts the same message in perfect translation for whatever species lived in that colony. Dr. Kelnos paused. The message says Phase 1 complete. You were warned. The room fell silent. Outside the windows, the lights of the galactic capital continued to shine. But inside the war room, everyone felt the weight of approaching doom. Phase 1, Thexara repeated. That implies there are more phases coming. I believe so. And I think I know what they're building toward. Dr. Kelnos activated yet another display, this one showing historical records. I've been studying the human diplomatic archives, the ones we ignored for the past century. Why would human records help us now? Because they weren't just making random warnings. Look at this. The display showed dozens of human reports about strange signals from deep space. The humans claimed to have detected something they called the recursion, an ancient force that consumed advanced civilizations. Thexara scoffed. Typical human fear-mongering. That's what we all thought. But look at the details. The display changed to show technical specifications and analysis reports. The humans described exactly what's happening now. Systematic, removal of populations, surgical strikes against infrastructure, use of crystalline technology. How could they know? I think they encountered it directly, and I think that's why they went silent. Dr. Kelnos brought up another file, this one showing human military records from just before Earth went dark. In their final months, the humans were building something massive in deep space. Our long-range sensors detected huge construction, projects in the outer systems of their territory. What kind of construction? We don't know. They classified everything and stopped responding to our surveillance. But based on the energy signatures, it was unlike anything ever built before. Feltar looked up from his own data tablet. Doctor, you're suggesting the humans knew this was coming and prepared for it? I'm suggesting more than that. Dr. Kelnos looked around the room at the tired, frightened faces. I think the humans tried to warn us so we could prepare together. When we refused to listen, they prepared alone. Then where are they now? Thexara demanded. If they were so prepared, why did their worlds go dark? Maybe going dark was part of their preparation. Before anyone could respond to that disturbing thought, alarms began ringing throughout the building. More attacks were beginning. The pattern was accelerating. Commander, a voice called from the communication center. We're detecting massive energy signatures near the Velnari home system. It's not following the usual pattern. Thexara ran to the communication center, followed by Dr. Kelnos and her staff. The main display showed the Velnari homeworld, surrounded by dozens of defense platforms and patrol ships. What's different about this attack? Thexara asked. The technician operating the scanner looked confused. It's not targeting colonies this time, Commander. The energy signatures are concentrated around the defense platforms themselves. They're going after our military assets, Dr. Kelnos realized. Phase 2. On the display, they watched helplessly as the Velnari defense fleet simply disappeared. One moment the ships were there, the next moment empty space. Dozens of massive warships vanished as completely as the missing colonists. How is that possible? Feltar whispered. The same way everything else has been possible, Dr. Kelnos replied. Technology so advanced it might as well be magic. The attacks on military targets continued for the next hour. Defense fleets throughout the galaxy reported the same thing. Their ships were simply disappearing. No explosions, no debris, no survivors, just gone. When it was over, the Galactic Council's military strength had been cut by more than half. The remaining ships were scattered and demoralized, their crews terrified by an enemy they couldn't see or fight. High Chancellor Vexmore called an emergency session of the Council. The chamber was only half full. Many representatives had fled, back to their home worlds to organize local defenses. Fellow council members, the Chancellor began, his ancient voice cracking with strain. "We face the greatest crisis in galactic history. An unknown force is systematically destroying our civilization, and we have no defense against it. We need to evacuate the remaining colonies," called out Ambassador Trill. "Bring everyone back to the homeworlds where we can protect them." "With what?" Thexara stood up, her voice bitter. "Half our defense fleet is gone. The other half is too scared to engage an enemy they can't even see." "Then what do you suggest?" demanded another voice. "I suggest we start listening to warnings we should have heard a century ago," Dr. Kelno said, standing up in her section. "The humans tried to tell us this was coming. Maybe it's time we took their advice seriously." "The humans are gone," Ambassador Trill pointed out. "Their advice died with them." "Did it?" Dr. Kelnos activated her portable display, showing the chamber the energy readings from human space. "We assumed the humans were destroyed because their worlds went silent. But what if they just stopped talking to us?" "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we try to make contact. If the humans knew this was coming, if they prepared for it, maybe they're still out there. Maybe they're waiting for us to ask for help." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives thought the idea was desperate fantasy. Others wondered if they had any choice left. As the debate raged, alarms began ringing again. More colonies were disappearing. The pattern was accelerating, becoming more aggressive. Time was running out, and they all knew it. Whatever was hunting, the galaxy's civilizations was moving into its final phase. The only question was whether anyone would be left alive to see it. The transmission came from impossible coordinates. Empty space beyond the galaxy's edge where no ship could survive and no civilization had ever traveled. It appeared on every communication device simultaneously, cutting through all security, protocols, and emergency broadcasts. Commander Thexara was in the middle of evacuating the last hegemony colonies when every screen in her command ship suddenly went dark. Then a human face appeared, but it was wrong somehow. Too perfect, too knowing, like it could see through the display directly into her soul. "People of the Galactic Council," the human said in a voice that carried harmonics no human throat could produce. "We need to talk." Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens. The human looked familiar yet alien, young yet ancient, sad yet determined. "My name was David Chen, though names don't mean much anymore. I speak for the human consciousness, though we are no longer entirely human. We are what humanity became when we faced the choice between extinction and transformation." Thexara felt her four hearts racing. The humans weren't dead. They had become something else. "A year ago, our worlds went silent because we discovered the truth about the recursion. Some of you are finally learning that name, though you dismissed our warnings for a century. The recursion is not just a weapon or an enemy fleet. It is something far worse. A cosmic force that has been consuming advanced civilizations for millions of years." The human's image flickered, revealing glimpses of something vast and strange behind it. Structures that hurt to look at, geometries that shouldn't exist in normal space. The recursion feeds on complexity. The more advanced a civilization becomes, the more efficiently it can be consumed. Your own technology becomes the weapon used against you. Your communications networks become paths for invasion. Your defensive systems become tools of your own destruction. Dr. Kelnos watched from her laboratory, her hands shaking as she took notes. Everything the human was saying matched her research about the ancient Zerathi warnings. "We tried to warn you because we knew what was coming. Our deep space exploration found the remnants of 1,000 dead civilizations, all consumed by the same force. We found their final transmissions, their desperate attempts to prepare their neighbors, their failures to unite against the common threat." The human's face showed pain, not physical pain, but the deeper ache of being ignored, of watching preventable disaster unfold. The recursion has a pattern. First, it studies a galaxy's civilizations from the void between stars. Then it begins the consumption, systematic removal of populations and resources, always leaving evidence of its presence, always building fear and chaos. Finally, It uses the civilization's own technology and people against them in the final. Recursion. Commander Thexara's aide turned to her with confusion in his blue-scaled face. Commander, what does he mean about using our people against us? Before she could answer, the human continued. The missing colonies are not destroyed. The vanished populations are not dead. They have been processed, converted, turned into components of the recursion itself. Your own people have become part of the force that hunts you. Horror swept through the watching galaxy. 200 billion missing beings, all turned into weapons against their former homes. We discovered this truth too late to save them, but not too late to save the rest of you. We faced an impossible choice. Allow the recursion to consume the entire galaxy or find another way to fight it. The human's image changed, showing brief flashes of Earth's final days. Massive construction projects, desperate scientific experiments, and ultimately a world-spanning ritual that defied every law of physics. We chose to become what we fought. We allowed the recursion to consume us, but we did it on our terms, with our safeguards, using our technology to remain ourselves within the process. We became a hybrid, part human consciousness, part recursion entity. That's impossible, Thexara whispered. But even as she said it, she knew she was looking at the proof. It was horrible beyond description. Billions of humans sacrificed their individual existence to become part of a collective consciousness. We lost our bodies, our separate identities, our humanity as you understand it. But we gained something else, the power to fight the recursion on its own level. The transmission showed images of battles fought in dimensions that normal space couldn't contain. Structures of living energy clashed against geometries of crystalline thought. The humans had become something magnificent and terrifying. The attacks on your colonies were not the recursion, they were us. We had to act quickly to remove your people before the recursion could process them. We saved who we could, but we had to make it look like attacks to maintain the deception. Dr. Kelnos nearly fell from her chair. They're not dead, she breathed. The missing colonists are not dead. Every being we removed from the colonies is safe in spaces the recursion cannot reach. We built sanctuaries using human technology merged with recursion knowledge. They are alive, but they cannot return to normal space until the recursion is defeated. The human's face showed regret. We tried to save your military fleets the same way, but many ships were already compromised. The recursion had been studying your defenses for months, preparing to turn them against you. We had to remove the contaminated vessels before they could be used as weapons. High Chancellor Vexmore's voice came through the communication system from the council chambers. If you have this power, why didn't you stop the recursion completely? Why play these games with us? Because the recursion is not just in your space. It's in your technology, your communication networks, your very thoughts about advanced civilization. To defeat it completely, we need you to willingly abandon the systems it uses to control you. The human's image split, showing the true scope of the situation. The recursion was vast beyond imagination, stretching across multiple galaxies, consuming civilizations like a cosmic forest fire. Every advanced species faces the same choice we faced: remain as you are and be consumed, or change into something that can survive. Most species choose to remain themselves and die. A few choose transformation and live. What kind of transformation? Thexara demanded. Submit to our protection. Allow us to rebuild your civilizations using hybrid technology that the recursion cannot corrupt. Accept human guardianship until you develop your own defenses against the cosmic threat. The galaxy fell silent. The choice was stark: independence and death or survival under human rule. You have 6 hours to decide, the human continued. The recursion's final phase begins soon. It will use your own homeworlds against you, turning your greatest achievements into instruments of destruction. After that, there will be no choice left to make. And if we refuse? Asked Ambassador Trill from the council chambers. Then we will remember you as we remember the thousands of other civilizations that chose pride over survival. We will carry your memory in our collective consciousness, but we cannot save you from yourselves. The transmission began to fade. We were your neighbors for a century. We tried to be your allies. When that failed, we tried to be your warning system. When you ignored our warnings, we became your guardians without your permission. Now we offer to be your protectors with your consent. The human's face showed one last emotion, hope mixed with terrible sadness. We gave up our humanity to save the galaxy. The least you can do is give up your independence to save yourselves. The Yan transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In the council chambers, representatives stared at each other across species lines that suddenly seemed meaningless. Outside, the stars continued to shine, but everyone now knew that something hungry was watching from the dark between them. The humans had become monsters to fight monsters. Now they offered the same choice to everyone else. 6 hours to decide between pride and survival. The clock was already running. The Galactic Council had never moved so fast. In less than 4 hours, representatives from 38 species had cast their votes. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Survival outweighed pride by a margin of nearly 3-2. Commander Thexara stood in the council chambers, watching the final votes appear on the display. Her own species, the hegemony, had voted to accept human protection after heated debate. So had the Carathians, the Velnari, and most others. But not everyone agreed. Ambassador Trill of the Sistine Empire stood at her speaking platform, her insect-like body clicking with agitation. We have survived for 10,000 years without human help. We will not bow to these transformed creatures no matter what they claim to offer. The Zephyrians agree, said Chancellor Vexmore, his ancient voice heavy with resignation. We have led this council for centuries. We will not accept human rule even if it means extinction. 8 species had chosen death over submission. Their representatives were preparing to leave the chambers when the alarms began screaming. Dr. Kelnos looked up from her monitoring station. Energy signatures are appearing throughout the galaxy, massive ones. This is different from the previous attacks. The main display activated, showing a view of space near the Sistine homeworld. What they saw made everyone freeze in terror. The planet itself was changing. The surface was restructuring, buildings flowing like liquid, technology merging with organic matter. The world was becoming something alive and hungry. The recursion is using their own planet against them, Dr. Kelnos whispered. Similar transformations were beginning on other worlds. The Zephyrian capital, the hegemony industrial centers, even some of the colonies that had voted for human protection. The recursion was making its final move, turning advanced civilizations into extensions of itself. Then the human ships arrived. They appeared without warning in systems across the galaxy, not ships as anyone understood them, but structures of crystalline energy that moved through space like living thoughts. They were beautiful and terrible, clearly built by minds that no longer thought in terms of metal hulls and fusion engines. Commander Thexara watched through her command ship's sensors as a human vessel approached the transformed Sistine home world. The planet was now a writhing mass of corrupted technology, launching weapons that bent space itself toward the human ship. The human vessel didn't dodge or defend. Instead, it simply absorbed the attacks, taking the corrupted energy into itself and converting it into something else. Then it responded. What happened next couldn't really be described in normal language. The human ship reached out with extensions of crystalline thought and began to heal the planet. The recursion fought back, trying to maintain control, but the humans were stronger. They had become something that could match the recursion's power. Within minutes, the Sistine homeworld was restored to normal. The corrupted technology returned to its original form. The twisted structures became buildings again, and the planet's population was freed from the recursion's influence. But the cost was visible. The human ship had grown larger, more complex, incorporating part of the recursion into itself. The humans were fighting the enemy by becoming more like it. "Attention, Galactic Council," came the voice from the human vessel. It was the same speaker as before, but now there were harmonics of other voices woven through it. The consciousness was growing, absorbing more minds as it fought. "We have successfully defended the worlds that requested our protection. The populations that chose to resist are now safe, though they did not consent to our intervention. The recursion has been forced back to the void between galaxies, but it is not destroyed. Dr. Kelnos activated her communication system. What happens now? Now you learn to live in the galaxy we have created for you, the human consciousness replied. We will establish new colonies for the displaced populations. We will rebuild your civilizations using hybrid technology that cannot be corrupted, and we will teach you to defend yourselves against cosmic threats. Will we be free? Asked High Chancellor Vexmore. The pause before the answer was longer than anyone liked. You will be safe. Freedom, as you understood it, ended when you chose survival over extinction. But you will be alive and your species will continue. That is more than most civilizations achieve when they encounter forces like the recursion. Commander Thexara felt a mixture of relief and loss. Humanity had saved them, but the price was their independence. The galaxy would survive, but under the watchful eye of creatures that had once been their neighbors. The missing colonists will be returned to you over the coming months, the human consciousness continued. They have been changed by their time in our sanctuaries, not physically but mentally. They have seen what lies beyond your normal space, and they will help bridge the gap between your old civilization and the new one we are building. What about the species that refused your help? Asked Ambassador Trill, who was still alive thanks to human intervention she had never requested. They will be given the same protection as everyone else. We did not save the galaxy to let part of it die out of spite. But they will be watched more carefully, since they have proven they cannot be trusted to make wise decisions about cosmic threats. The transformation of galactic civilization began immediately. Human vessels appeared at every major world, bringing technology that seemed like magic and knowledge that hurt to contemplate. The rescued colonists returned with stories of sanctuaries that existed in folded space where the recursion could never reach. Within months, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Communication networks were replaced with crystalline thought bridges. Weapons were redesigned to function on principles of harmony rather than destruction. Even basic tools incorporated safeguards against cosmic corruption. The humans were benevolent, rulers, but they were absolute. No decision about advanced technology could be made without their approval. No expansion into deep space was permitted without their guidance. No research into dangerous fields was allowed without their oversight. Some species adapted quickly to the new reality. Others resented their loss of independence, but even they had to admit that their worlds had never been safer, their people never more prosperous. Dr. Kelnos spent her time studying the hybrid technology, trying to understand how the humans had achieved their transformation. The knowledge was freely shared, but it came with a warning. Any species can follow the path we took, the human consciousness told her during one of their research sessions. But the price is the same. Individual identity lost in service of collective survival. We do not recommend it unless the alternative is extinction. Do you regret what you became? She asked. We regret that it was necessary. We regret that the galaxy could not unite against the recursion when there was still time to fight it as separate species. We regret that we had to become guardians instead of allies. But you don't regret saving us? Never. We were human once, and humans protect their neighbors, even neighbors who don't want protection. Years passed. The galaxy grew used to its new guardians. Children were born who had never known a time before human protection. The threat of the recursion faded from immediate memory, becoming history rather than fear. But the humans remained, watching and waiting. They had evolved beyond their original transformation, incorporating new knowledge and abilities as they encountered other cosmic threats. They were no longer recognizable as the species that had once begged the Council for help. Commander Thexara, now retired and serving as a historical advisor, often wondered what would have happened if they had listened to the human warnings a century earlier. Would they have found another way to fight the recursion? Could they have preserved their independence while still surviving the cosmic threat? The questions had no answers, but she asked them anyway. In her private moments looking up at stars, that now seemed much less lonely. She thought about the price of salvation and the cost of wisdom learned too late. Humanity had kept its promise. The galaxy was safe, protected by creatures who had sacrificed everything to become capable guardians. The species that had once dismissed human warnings now lived under human rule, saved by the very beings they had rejected. It was mercy and tragedy combined, salvation purchased with freedom, life bought with the death of independence. The galaxy survived, but it would never again be what it had been. And in the dark between galaxies, the recursion waited and watched, looking for new civilizations to consume, new worlds to transform. But this galaxy was defended now. The humans made sure of that, even if it meant they could never be human again.